Far beyond the bright core of the galaxy, in a remote and forgotten corner of space, the Lyrics Coalition was on the brink of collapse. For decades, the Coalition, a fragile alliance of diverse alien races, had stood as a shield against the expanding threat of the Zarnak Empire. But now, the situation was dire. Their outpost on Thalor 7, a once prosperous mining planet rich in rare minerals, was under relentless attack. The Zarnak forces descended like a dark storm, their war machines tearing through defenses with brutal efficiency. Thick clouds of smoke and fire rose from the planet's surface as explosions echoed across the once peaceful skies. The Coalition soldiers, exhausted and outnumbered, fought desperately to hold their ground. Yet with every passing hour, it seemed their hope dimmed further, swallowed by the growing shadow of defeat. Communication channels, once a lifeline connecting the Coalition outposts to their command fleets, had gone eerily silent. Attempts to contact reinforcements or to coordinate a retreat were met only with static or worse. No response at all. It was as if Thalor 7 had been cut off from the galaxy itself. Soldiers on the ground shared worried glances, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. They knew that without help, their chances of survival were slim. The commanders huddled in cramped bunkers, their voices low as they planned what they feared would be a final stand. Every second brought the enemy closer to total victory, and every breath felt heavier with the weight of impending loss. But even in the darkest hours, stories began to surface, whispers of something unexpected. Among the Coalition ranks, rumors spread like wildfire about a human warship, a ghost from the past, that might yet turn the tide. The humans, it seemed, were legends to most in the Coalition. Their civilization had once reached far beyond known space, and many believed their warships had been lost or destroyed in long-forgotten battles. The USS Resolute, the ship said to be the last of its kind, had become a myth, a story told in hushed tones around campfires and in the mess halls, a tale of a vessel that could appear without warning, strike with unmatched precision, and vanish just as quickly. Some dismissed it as fantasy, a hope born of desperation. Others clung to the idea as a final glimmer of salvation. Lieutenant Kira Velan, a young but battle-hardened Lyrics officer, stared out from a shattered observation dome above the battlefield. Her sharp eyes scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of relief amid the smoke and ruin. She remembered the early days of the siege when confidence was still high, and every report spoke of reinforcements on their way. Now those promises had become empty words, replaced by silence. Her thoughts drifted to the stories she had heard. Stories of human ships so advanced that they could cloak themselves from sensors and strike where no enemy expected. She wondered if such a ship could be more than a legend. Could the Resolute still be out there, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself? The sounds of battle raged on below, the clash of laser fire and explosions a harsh symphony to the ears of those above. Despite the chaos, Kira felt a strange calm settle within her. Sometimes hope was not about certainty but about believing in the impossible. It was this fragile hope that held the soldiers together, gave them strength to stand and fight even as the walls of their world crumbled around them. In the command center, General Torkin's face was drawn and tired, lines of worry marking his features. He paced the room, pausing only to study the tactical maps that glowed with blips of enemy positions. Each red dot represented a threat closing in fast. The Zarnak had pushed their advantage relentlessly, showing no mercy. Yet even as defeat seemed certain, Torkin refused to give in. "We cannot surrender," he said firmly to his officers. "If we do, the Coalition falls. We must hold. We must survive." But even his voice betrayed a hint of doubt, a flicker of fear for what the coming hours might bring. Outside, the sky above Thalor 7 was filled with the jagged shapes of starships, Zarnak vessels moving in tight formation, bombers diving toward the planet's surface, and fighters weaving deadly patterns through the clouds. The landscape was scarred, the forests burned, and the cities reduced to rubble. In the distance, emergency beacons flickered weakly, their signals drowned in the noise of war. Every hour that passed, the question grew louder in everyone's minds. Where was the help they had been promised? Then, amidst this relentless storm of destruction, something changed. On the edge of sensor range, a strange signal appeared, faint, almost undetectable but unmistakably artificial. The technicians who noticed it held their breath, running analysis, double-checking. The signal was not from any known coalition, ship or station. It was different. A pulse, steady and rhythmic, like a heartbeat in the void. The room fell silent as the possibility took root. Could this be the human ship? Was the Resolute truly out there, hiding in the shadows, ready to strike? Kira's heart quickened as she heard the news. She moved swiftly to the main viewing screen, watching the static slowly clear. Shapes began to form. A sleek warship, unlike anything the Coalition had seen before. It was covered in dark armor that shimmered faintly, and no bright lights gave away its presence. The ship moved silently, a ghost in the starry blackness, drawing closer with a purpose that seemed almost deliberate. The room buzzed with cautious excitement. For the first time in weeks, the soldiers and commanders felt a spark of hope. The war was far from over. The humans, it seemed, had not forgotten the Coalition. And as the Resolute emerged from the darkness, the enemy forces on Thaler 7 suddenly had a new threat to fear, one they had never expected to face. The battle for Thaler 7 continued to rage fiercely across the scarred skies and shattered surface. Explosions burst in chaotic rhythm, sending shock waves through the air and rattling the nerves of every soldier fighting below. Yet amid the storm of destruction, an unusual disturbance began to ripple through the Coalition's sensor networks. Something faint, elusive, and unlike anything they had encountered before. At first, it was barely noticeable, a tiny flicker of energy far beyond the front line, near the edge of the battlefield. Many dismissed it as a sensor glitch or perhaps a trick employed by the cunning Zarnak to confuse their defenses. After all, the enemy was known for their use of deception and stealth, and with the pressure mounting, the commanders had learned to be wary of false alarms. Still, the strange signature refused to fade, growing slowly stronger, more consistent, as if it had a purpose. The Coalition's best analysts worked tirelessly to decode the anomaly, scanning every detail, trying to determine its origin. The tension in the command center was palpable. Soldiers and officers alike felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down on them, a silent question hanging in the air. Was this another threat or something else entirely? Lieutenant Kira Valen stood at the observation window, eyes fixed on the distant blackness beyond the atmosphere. Her mind raced with possibilities. The stories she had heard about the human warship, the USS Resolute, surfaced again. Could this strange energy signature be a sign that the legend was true? Could help finally be arriving like a ghost stepping out of the void? As the minutes ticked by, the data on the screens began to align with the improbable truth. The signature was unlike anything the Coalition's ships produced. It pulsed with an odd rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, and the energy reading suggested a powerful vessel cloaked in advanced stealth technology. Its speed defied logic, darting from one point to another with an eerie silence, leaving no visible trail behind. The commanders exchanged cautious glances. Could this really be the Resolute? If it was, what did its sudden arrival mean for the outcome of the battle? Suddenly, the warship revealed itself, not with a roar or a blaze of light, but as a ghostly silhouette that appeared out of nowhere, as if the fabric of space itself had been folded to bring it forth. The shape was sleek and angular, covered in dark armor that absorbed rather than reflected light. No bright engines flared, no sounds of engines or weapons betrayed its presence. It moved like a phantom, passing through the sky with a grace and speed that made it nearly impossible to track. The Coalition soldiers on the ground stopped fighting for a moment, turning their eyes upward, stunned by the sudden presence. Rumors and legends had become reality. The Resolute was here. The human warship's arrival shifted the balance instantly. The Zarnak fleet, confident and aggressive moments before, suddenly faltered as their sensors began to pick up the strange vessel. Their pilots and commanders exchanged confused and worried signals, unsure of what they were facing. The Resolute did not respond to attacks like ordinary ships. Instead, it struck with surgical precision, targeting key enemy ships and installations with weapons so advanced they seemed almost magical. Explosions tore through the Zarnak lines as the human warship unleashed barrages of energy that disabled engines, destroyed weapon arrays, and sowed chaos in the enemy ranks. The speed and unpredictability of its attacks left the Zarnak scrambling. To regroup, their usual confidence replaced by unease. Back in the command center, General Torkin watched in awe as the tide of battle began to turn. The Resolute was not only powerful but also intelligent in its approach, supporting coalition forces by drawing enemy fire, providing cover, and coordinating strikes that opened opportunities for ground troops to advance. The soldiers' morale soared as they saw their allies gain the upper hand. What had seemed like a hopeless situation was suddenly filled with new energy and hope. The mysterious human warship was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of resistance and courage, arriving when it was needed most. Yet the Resolute remained a mystery. No messages came through their communications, no announcements or calls for assistance. It was as if the ship operated on its own terms, a silent guardian watching from the shadows. Analysts speculated that the humans preferred to observe and strike quickly, avoiding unnecessary contact. This made their actions even more unpredictable and effective. The coalition began to realize that the humans were not just fighters. They were masters of strategy and surprise, using technology that far outpaced anything the coalition or the Zarnak had ever seen. Lieutenant Kira felt a mixture of awe and curiosity. Who were these humans, really? What had driven them to roam the galaxy, appearing only in moments of great need? She thought of the stories passed down from older generations, tales of humanity's resilience, their determination to survive and protect, their refusal to back down no matter the odds. The Resolute was living proof that those stories were not just myths. It was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times help could come from the most unexpected places. The Zarnak, realizing the threat the human ship posed, redoubled their efforts to eliminate it. They launched waves of fighters and missile volleys aimed at the Resolute, trying to force it into open battle where their numbers might overwhelm it. But the ship vanished before any attack could land, slipping away like a shadow, only to reappear in another location where it struck again with devastating effect. The Zarnak were trapped in a nightmare, fighting an enemy they could neither predict nor catch. Their frustration grew, and their losses mounted. On the ground, coalition soldiers pushed forward, inspired by the Resolute's support. The battle lines began to shift as pockets of resistance turned into coordinated advances. Supplies and reinforcements previously cut off found new paths through the chaos. The dream of survival, once so fragile, became a possibility again. The presence of the human warship was more than just military aid. It was a rallying cry that united the diverse races of the coalition with renewed purpose. As night fell over Thalor 7, the Resolute continued to patrol the skies, unseen but ever present. Its silhouette, barely visible against the stars, reminded everyone that they were not alone. In the quiet moments between battles, soldiers spoke in hushed tones of the phantom warship, the human ghost that had arrived like a whisper in the dark. They wondered what future awaited them now, and if the humans would stay to fight alongside them, or disappear once more into the endless night of space. For now, the war was far from over, but the arrival of the USS Resolute had changed everything. The phantom beacon in the darkness had sparked a fire in the hearts of those who fought on Thalor 7, a fire fueled by hope, courage, and the fierce belief that even when all seemed lost, help could come from beyond the stars, silent and unstoppable. The arrival of the USS Resolute marked a turning point in the fierce battle raging over Thalor 7. The human warship, unlike anything the Coalition or Zarnak forces had ever faced, began its assault with a precision and power that stunned everyone watching. The Resolute did not attack in reckless waves like many ships, but with careful calculation and a fierce determination that reflected a deep understanding of war. Its weapons, powered by technology centuries ahead of what the galaxy had seen, unleashed beams of energy that cut through enemy armor and shields like a hot knife through butter. The Zarnak, proud of their brutal strength and overwhelming numbers, found themselves disoriented and outmatched as the human ship struck repeatedly, then vanished before retaliation could find its mark. Every strike seemed deliberate, targeting command ships, supply lines, and key positions to cripple the enemy's ability to fight. The devastation was swift and terrifying, sowing confusion and fear among the ranks of the Zarnak invaders. Many of their commanders struggled to comprehend this new enemy, whose boldness and skill defied their expectations. Their usual tactics failed to adapt quickly enough, leaving their forces vulnerable to sudden, devastating blows. On the ground, the soldiers of the Lyrics coalition felt the shift immediately. Where moments before despair had weighed heavily on their shoulders, a renewed energy surged through their ranks. The appearance of the Resolute inspired them in ways that weapons alone never could. They had thought themselves abandoned, waiting for the inevitable end, but now they saw that someone had come to fight alongside them, someone who refused to let them fall quietly into defeat. Commanders issued orders with newfound confidence, rallying their troops to press forward and reclaim lost ground. The battle cries rose once again, echoing through the shattered ruins as coalition fighters moved with greater speed and coordination. Even the most exhausted and frightened soldiers found themselves lifted by the spirit of this unexpected ally, their steps lighter and their aim truer. The presence of the human warship was more than just physical support. It was a symbol of resilience, a living reminder that strength came from hope and unity. The tactics used by the humans aboard the Resolute were unlike anything the coalition had seen before. They combined careful planning with aggressive strikes, never giving the enemy time to recover. The ship's captain, a calm and calculating leader known only as Commander Jackson, directed his crew with sharp commands and steady resolve. From the bridge, he studied the battlefield with a keen eye, coordinating attacks that maximized damage while protecting the vulnerable coalition forces below. His decisions were swift but measured, a balance between boldness and caution. He understood that this was not just a battle for territory but a test of wills, one that required every advantage the humans could bring. The Resolute moved like a shadow across the sky, its movements fluid and unpredictable, appearing where it was least expected and vanishing just as quickly. It was as if the ship itself was alive, thinking ahead of the enemy, turning their strengths into weaknesses. The Zarnak, frustrated and shaken, attempted to adapt. They brought in reinforcements and tried to trap the elusive warship with nets of fighter ships and missile barrages. But the Resolute was faster and smarter. It dodged and countered with an ease that made it seem invincible. Each time the Zarnak closed in, the human ship responded with overwhelming firepower that left their forces scattered and vulnerable. Slowly, the tide of the battle began to turn. The overwhelming advance of the Zarnak forces slowed to a hesitant retreat, and the coalition's front lines pushed outward, reclaiming critical areas that had been lost in the early days of the siege. The very air seemed to change, filled with a mixture of relief and fierce determination. The soldiers who had once faced certain defeat now dreamed of victory. Amid the chaos, stories of human bravery and skill spread quickly among the coalition troops. Reports came in of daring maneuvers executed by the Resolute's crew, of moments when the ship seemed to risk everything to protect small groups of soldiers caught behind enemy lines. These tales, shared around campfires and in quiet moments between battles, painted a picture of humanity not just as warriors, but as champions of hope and sacrifice. Lieutenant Kira Velen listened to these stories with a growing sense of admiration. She understood that this was more than just a fight for survival. It was a testament to the human spirit, a fierce refusal to surrender no matter the odds. She wondered what it must be like to serve on a ship like the Resolute, to live with the responsibility of turning the tide of an entire war. The technological marvels aboard the Resolute fascinated the coalition's scientists and engineers. The ship's shields adapted instantly to different forms of attack, learning and evolving faster than any system they had ever known. Its weapons included energy beams that could pierce the toughest armor and drones that flew out like swarms of metallic wasps, disabling enemy systems with precision. The humans also shared critical intelligence about the Zarnak, insights into their weaknesses, their battle formations, and their strategies. This information allowed coalition forces to anticipate enemy moves and strike where it hurt most. Together, these factors created a synergy that breathed new life into the defense of Thalor 7. Yet despite all the power and technology, the Resolute's crew remained mysterious. They communicated little, their voices calm and controlled, revealing nothing beyond the facts needed to coordinate the battle. It was clear that their mission was focused and urgent, driven by a deep sense of duty rather than glory or recognition. For the Coalition, this attitude only deepened the respect they felt for their human allies. Here were warriors who fought, not for themselves but for something greater, a shared future and the survival of countless lives across the galaxy. As the sun set on Thalor 7, the battlefield quieted for a brief moment. The Zarnak forces had been pushed back, their plans disrupted and their confidence shaken. The Coalition took advantage of the lull to regroup and prepare for the next phase of the war. In the glowing twilight, the Resolute hovered silently above, a guardian watching over its new allies. The sight of the ship filled those below with a sense of calm and strength, as if the very presence of humanity was a shield against the darkness threatening their world. The war was far from over, but the arrival of the USS Resolute had changed everything. It brought fire and steel, technology and tactics, yes, but also something harder to measure: hope. And in that hope, the Coalition found the strength to stand and fight, to believe that no matter how fierce the enemy, no matter how deep the shadows they could overcome, humanity's legacy was alive, blazing across the stars, and those who fought beside the Resolute would never forget the day the Phantom warship arrived and turned the tide of war. As the battle for Thalor 7 stretched into endless days and nights, the Coalition found itself fighting not only with renewed strength, but with a growing understanding of the humans who had arrived to aid them. The USS Resolute, once a shadowy myth, had become a central figure in the struggle, a symbol of hope, shining brightly amid the darkness. Coalition leaders, initially cautious and curious, began to learn more about the human race through shared intelligence and careful communication with Commander Jackson, the captain of the Resolute. The stories he told, the lessons he shared, revealed a people forged in hardship, shaped by centuries of surviving against impossible odds. The humans had faced extinction on their homeworld many times, yet each time they found ways to rise again, stronger and more determined. This resilience was more than just history. It was a living part of who they were, and it shaped every decision made aboard the Resolute. Their loyalty was fierce, a bond that extended not only to their own kind, but to any who fought alongside them. To the Coalition, this fierce loyalty became a new kind of strength, a human edge that set the tide of the battle apart from all others. The alien commanders listened carefully as Commander Jackson shared knowledge about advanced technologies and battle tactics unknown to most Coalition forces. He explained how the human ship systems worked, revealing the secrets behind its near invisibility and unparalleled speed. More importantly, he spoke of the importance of coordination, precision, and adaptability, principles that guided every move made by the Resolute and its crew. With this knowledge, the Coalition quickly reorganized its defenses, strengthening weak points and developing new strategies to counter the relentless Zarnak assaults. The once fragmented alliance began to operate as a single, unified force. Communication improved and the soldiers learned to anticipate enemy tactics, striking back before the Zarnak could react. This shift was more than just military. It was a change in mindset, a shift from desperation to determination. Coalition officers found themselves inspired by the human way of thinking about war. The humans fought not with reckless fury, but with a sharp mind and a bold heart. They understood that survival required both courage and careful planning, and their ability to balance these traits amazed the alien allies. In meetings and briefings, stories of human battles on distant worlds were shared. Tales of how humanity had overcome invaders, natural disasters, and even their own divisions through sheer will and ingenuity. These stories reminded the Coalition that victory was possible even when the odds were stacked high against them. The Resolute became more than a warship. It became a symbol of tenacity and hope, a beacon that encouraged every soldier to fight not just for survival, but for a future where their species could live in peace. Lieutenant Kira Valen watched these changes unfold with a mixture of pride and curiosity. She had seen the difference the humans made on the battlefield, but now she witnessed how their spirit affected the hearts of the Coalition's people. Where fear had once ruled, a quiet confidence now grew. The soldiers began to believe that they could win, that their sacrifices were not in vain. Kira found herself seeking out moments to speak with members of the Resolute's crew, hoping to understand what drove them, what made them willing to risk everything for strangers on a distant planet. Each conversation deepened her respect for humanity's resilience and their willingness to fight for others, even when the cost was high. It was this shared determination that bound the Coalition and the humans together, forming a new kind of alliance, one built on trust, respect, and a shared vision of survival. Meanwhile, the Zarnak forces, shaken by the humans' arrival, struggled to regain their footing. Their commanders grew increasingly frustrated by the Coalition's new tactics and the mysterious power of the Resolute. Attempts to infiltrate the human ship's defenses failed repeatedly, and the Zarnak's usual intimidation tactics lost effectiveness. They could no longer rely on brute strength alone. Instead, they faced an enemy who thought several steps ahead, who used the very chaos of war to create opportunities and exploit weaknesses. The humans had brought an edge the Zarnak had never encountered, one sharpened by experience, intelligence, and an unyielding will to survive. In the quiet hours between battles, the Resolute continued to share its knowledge. Human engineers worked alongside Coalition scientists, exchanging ideas and improving the defensive systems on Thalor 7. New weapon designs were tested, better shields developed, and improved communication networks built. Every innovation made the Coalition stronger, more prepared to face the next wave of enemy attacks. The collaboration was a testament to what could be achieved when different species united under a common cause. It was not just technology that was shared, but hope. The hope that the darkness could be pushed back, that the light of cooperation and courage could shine through even the most desperate times. For many soldiers, the human presence was a reminder of what was possible. They thought back to the stories told by their elders, legends of great heroes and impossible victories, and realized those tales were alive in the humans who fought beside them. The Resolute was a living legend now, a force that refused to give in, a reminder that even the most unlikely victories could happen when courage met opportunity. It became clear that humanity was not just another member of the Coalition. They were a symbol, a spark, that reignited the fight and inspired every soul standing on the edge of destruction. As the battle for Thalor 7 continued, the Coalition's hope grew stronger with each passing day. The humans and their warship were no longer strangers but essential allies, and their story intertwined with those fighting alongside them. The edge the humans brought was not just in their weapons or technology, it was in their spirit, their history, and their unbreakable will. The USS Resolute had become more than a ship. It was a promise that even when faced with overwhelming odds, strength and hope could rise from the darkest shadows. The battle for Thalor 7 had reached a turning point that no one could have predicted just days before. The once overwhelming might of the Zarnak Empire was finally broken, their forces retreating in disarray from the shattered landscapes of the mining planet. Coalition troops, once on the brink of defeat, now moved with confident purpose, reclaiming every lost inch of ground. Yet amid this hard-won victory, the presence of the USS Resolute remained a mystery, a ghostly force that had appeared when all hope seemed lost and now seemed ready to vanish just as silently. The massive human warship, having torn through enemy ranks with unmatched skill and power, began to pull away from the battlefield, slipping through the veil of space as quietly as it had emerged. Its departure was not mourned, but understood. The Resolute had come with a mission, and that mission was fulfilled. It left behind not just a battlefield cleared of enemies, but a legacy that would ripple across the galaxy for generations to come. As the Resolute drifted farther from Thalor 7, the leaders of the Lyrics Coalition gathered to assess the cost and meaning of the conflict. Their faces, once pale with fear and exhaustion, now bore expressions of cautious hope. They spoke of the humans in hushed tones, their voices filled with respect and awe. The captain of the Resolute, Commander Jackson, had shared more than just technology and tactics. He had shared the human spirit, the strength to face impossible odds without surrender, the courage to fight for more than survival, and the loyalty that bound them not only to their own kind, but to allies across the stars. This spirit had changed the course of the battle and inspired the coalition in ways that no weapon or strategy could. It was a reminder that war was not only about power, but about the will to endure and to protect what mattered most. The coalition's renewed unity was perhaps the greatest victory of all. The once fragile alliance of alien species, often divided by mistrust and fear, found new strength in their shared experience of fighting alongside the humans. The bonds forged in battle were strong and lasting, built on mutual respect and a common dream of peace. Soldiers who had faced death together now spoke openly of hope and future plans, no longer weighed down by the shadow of defeat. The memory of the Resolute's arrival would forever be etched into their history, a symbol of resilience and cooperation that would inspire generations to come. In the aftermath, tales of the USS Resolute began to spread beyond Thaler 7, whispered in starports and military outposts across the galaxy. It was said that the ship moved like a phantom, unseen and unstoppable, appearing at the darkest hour to change the fate of a battle. Some spoke of its crew with reverence, imagining them as warriors who carried the weight of humanity's legacy on their shoulders. Others wondered if the ship was more than just metal and machines, perhaps a symbol of something greater, a beacon of hope that shone even in the most hopeless moments. Whatever the truth, the legend of the Resolute grew, reminding all who heard it that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, a light that refused to be extinguished. Among those who fought alongside the humans, Lieutenant Kira Velen often found herself reflecting on what the Resolute represented. It was not just a weapon of war but a promise that no matter how dark the universe might seem, there was always a chance for hope to return. She thought of the faces of her comrades, the ones who had fallen, and the ones who still stood, and felt a deep gratitude for the humans who had arrived like a silent storm, shifting the balance and showing them that victory was possible. The memory of the Resolute would be a guiding star for her people, a reminder that courage and unity could overcome even the fiercest enemies. Even as peace settled slowly over Thaler 7, the galaxy remained watchful. The Zarnak Empire, though pushed back, was not destroyed, and the lessons learned from this battle would shape future conflicts. Yet the coalition stood stronger, more united than ever, armed not just with new weapons, but with the knowledge that they had allies in humanity. The Resolute had shown them a glimpse of a future where different species could stand together, fighting side by side against threats too great for any one race alone. The final act of the USS Resolute was as mysterious as its arrival. After ensuring the safety of the planet and the coalition forces, the ship engaged its stealth systems once more, fading into the vast emptiness of space like a ghost returning to the void. Some believed it would return when the galaxy called upon humanity's strength again. Others thought it might remain forever out there, watching silently, ready to act when needed. But all agreed on one thing. The Resolute was a symbol that hope was never truly lost, that when humanity arrived, the impossible could become reality. And so, under the twin suns of Thaler 7, the coalition soldiers raised their flags higher and their voices louder, pledging to honor the bravery of the humans who came like a phantom in the night. The scars of battle would heal, but the memory of this fight, the dawn of the Resolute, would live on. Across the stars, a new legend had been born, one that would inspire countless souls to stand firm, to fight fiercely, and to believe that together, no darkness was too deep to overcome.